Since the beginning of November, we have been inundated with new official content for 5e. In that time, we've had the release of Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerun, and Adventures in Faerun, plus all the mini-books that came with it, so Astarian's Book of Hungers, Netherose Fall, and Lorwyn First Light. And most recently, we just had Eberron Forge of the Artificer come out. So in total, these books added 86 new monsters to the total count for 2024 D&D, which is not insignificant. It's like a 20% increase from where we were at just before. Anyway, anyone who knows my channel also knows that looking at monsters is one of my favorite things to do. So today we're going to be highlighting some of the deadliest creatures added across all of the 6 books that I just mentioned. We're going to go through each of the challenge ratings, obviously skipping ones where we have nothing, and we're going to talk about the deadliest creatures that we have, what makes them so spicy, and then some runners up as well. Just emphasize, while some might be, I'm not saying that these are more deadly than any of the previous lists that I had from the Monster Manual, just that they are the deadliest of the new creatures. After we get a few more releases, maybe I'll make an updated list. And as usual, we are also going to ignore named creatures since they tend to just be juice versions of other monsters that don't get a CR adjustment, so they don't really make any sense in the context of this discussion. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for helping me break the insane 25,000 subscriber milestone. It really is mind-blowing. But thanks to you, I ended up getting through that way earlier than I expected, so maybe now let's see how close we can get to 30,000 by the end of the year. You are all truly incredible. Thank you so much for your continued support. First up, and the deadliest of the new CR 1/4 creatures, is the Drow of Lolth from Adventures in Faerun. With a solid AC of 15 and a respectable 13 hit points for the CR, it also has advantage on saving throws to avoid or end the charmed condition, which could prove valuable to throw a wrench in some new party plans. What makes it so potent for this challenge rating isn't even its hand crossbow attack itself, though if you're level 1, taking an average of 4 damage can be a pretty big deal. But what hits harder than that is its DC 12 Constitution saving throw that's tied to it, failing which the target is poisoned for an hour with no opportunity to make a repeated save. Plus, if they fail to save by 5 or more, they become unconscious as well, potentially forcing another player to waste their action to then wake them up, though they still don't even end the poison condition if they do that. Stacking damage and conditions against a low-level group is something that can seriously pose a massive threat to them. Runner-up for CR 1/4 is the Noggle Ransacker from Lorwyn First Light. It's not as sturdy as the Drow of Lolth, given that it has an AC of 12 and just 13 hit points, but again, it's the combination of damage stacking and a rider on top of it. This time, it isn't even technically a condition, but taking an average 6 slashing damage can already be enough to bloody a level 1 character, but then also subjecting them to a DC 12 dexterity saving throw, failing which they take a -1 penalty to their AC, which they also need to take a full action to clear. Dealing devastating damage, which then makes it easier for the target to take that devastating damage again, or sacrifice the bulk of their turn to clear it, can be the kind of thing that quickly snowballs and TPKs a low-level party. Moving on to CR 1/2, the deadliest creature here is the Volkuri Stingblade from Eberron Forge of the Artificer. With a reasonable AC of 14 and a strong 27 hit points for its CR, it's already looking reasonably tough. Stack on top of that having resistance to poison damage and the inability to be put to sleep magically, this can seriously shut down some low-level party tricks as well. Its attacks aren't necessarily the most devastating, both dealing an average damage of 7, but the Stingblade itself adding poison damage into the mix may be tougher for some characters to handle as they might not have the resistance to help out with it. Plus, having 2 separate dice that get doubled on a crit can lead to some accidental or premature character deaths. Moving on to CR 1, the deadliest creature that we have here is the Deep Dragon Wyrmling from Adventures in Faerun. Overall, I'm not overly impressed with the Deep Dragon family, but I think at CR 1, it absolutely represents a significant threat to just about any party at this stage of the game. Its AC of 15 and 27 hit points is fine for this range, but what really stands out here are its movement options. Having a fly speed of 60 feet can keep it well out of range of so many things, and lower level groups may have difficulty handling that. But potentially even more concerning is the 15-foot burrow speed, which can be extremely difficult to handle for pretty much any party. On top of that, having resistance to both poison and psychic damage and reasonable saves across the board just makes this a tough creature. Add to that its Nightmare Breath, which is also on a recharge 33% of the time, dealing both damage and potentially frightening targets in a 15-foot cone, can make this a very challenging fight. Our first runner-up in CR1 is the Dask Raider from Eberron Forge of the Artificer. It's got an AC of 15 and 33 hit points, which is already looking pretty good, but it does also have the Pack Tactics trait, making it incredibly easy for it to get advantage on its attacks, which at this stage can be incredibly dangerous. Its pummel attack in itself is probably not the most concerning, given that it's dealing just an average of 5 bludgeoning damage, but its smashback reaction, allowing it to take another attack after it takes damage, can be very dicey. You'll probably want to try and hit this guy from range. Second runner-up is the Noggle Wild Mage from Lorwyn First Light. With an AC of only 13 and just 22 hit points, its defensive stats are not all that impressive. But what stands out here is its Bloodied Wild Magic trait, which allows it, once bloodied, to gain a fly speed of 30 feet. And it can then choose to change the damage type of any of its attacks to force damage, which is going to get around pretty much every resistance. On the offensive side, it also has multi-attack, which is very good in this range. But on top of that, its Befuddling Ray forcing a target that it hits to subtract 1d4 from their next saving throw before the end of the Noggle's next turn can be very sketchy if there are multiple creatures in the same encounter with some imposing saves. I'll give an honorable mention to the Zentilar Soldier from Adventures in Faerun, not because it's particularly flashy, but because of its incredibly flexible multi-attack, especially since it can swap an attack for a use of its knockdown ability, which can both deal some damage and knock a target prone. But what's particularly dangerous about that is that it can use this first and then follow up with a short sword attack, giving itself advantage on the attack. Anytime an enemy can easily combo with itself, that's something that you need to be very worried about. Next, we're moving up into CR2, and this tends to be the challenge rating where we see the first big jump in overall monster power. Our winner for deadliest new CR2 creature, and honestly this could have gone any number of ways, so I wouldn't argue either way too hard, is going to be the Emerald Claw Knight from Forge of the Artificer. Mostly because it's just an absolute unit. This thing has a massive AC of 18, which is behind only the Will-O-Wisp as far as armor class goes for CR2, and it has a very healthy 52 hit points and reasonable saves across the board. It's also got multi-attack, which is great, but what makes it particularly threatening is that the flail attack also gives the target disadvantage on its next attack before the knight's next turn. But even more than that, it also deals more damage once it becomes bloodied. Both its flail and javelin attacks deal an extra 1d8 necrotic damage once the knight is bloodied. So by the time you've worn this thing down, which is going to take a while given its AC and hit point total, it starts hitting basically twice as hard. It's got everything to make this for a lethal fight. Runner-up for CR2 is the Faerun Scout from Netheryl's Fall. It has an AC of 13 and 44 hit points, which are both quite respectable, but it also has a 40-foot fly speed, which is very strong in this range. It's also immune to being charmed and has some solid saves. Additionally though, it also has magic resistance, giving it advantage on saves against spells and other magical effects, making it even harder for spellcasters to take advantage of it. But if all of those defenses weren't enough, it also has the Uncanny Dodge reaction, allowing it to reduce damage from an attack roll by half. All these things together probably give it an effective hit point total in like the 70s. And we aren't even done, since its multi-attack with 2 stingers can hit for an average combined damage of 26, which is so strong in this range, and then its Mind Warp Ray can, on a hit, deal damage and impose the charmed condition with no save, functionally taking someone out of the encounter for at least a little bit. Second runner-up in CR2 is the Spirit Dragon Wormling from Adventures in Faerun. It has a solid AC of 16 and 52 hit points, and also has both a fly and burrow speed, making it potentially very difficult to get a hit on. But what makes it even more potent are its 2 different breath attacks. First, it has Ruinous Breath, which deals 3d8 necrotic damage to a creature in a 15-foot cone. But more devastating than that is its Time Warping Breath, which also hits creatures in a 15-foot cone, and on a failed DC 12 Wisdom saving throw, each creature then has their speed halved. They can't take reactions, and they need to decide whether to take an action or bonus action on each turn, not both. They do get a repeated save at the end of each of their turns though. Effects like this can frustrate players and become very deadly to a party very quickly. And our final runner-up in CR2 is the Volkuri Venom Priest from Eberron Forge of the Artificer. Defensively, it has an AC of 15 and 44 hit points, resistance to necrotic damage, and has an impressive +5 to its wisdom saving throws. But what makes it deadly is a sort of self-working combo. Its Venom Staff both deals damage and automatically imparts the poison condition on a hit, which lasts until the end of the priest's next turn. But then, its Intensify Poison bonus action causes each creature with the poison condition within a 30-foot emanation originating from the priest to take 1d6 poison damage. Now, there's a few things that are really cool about this. Say, on a turn you hit someone and poison them, and then you take your bonus action to deal extra poison damage to them. Then your turn comes around again, and they're still poisoned since the effect lasts until the end of our now current turn. But we can also hit a different creature and then use Intensify Poison to potentially hit 2 creatures with it, one of which got hit twice. Plus, Intensify Poison does not require that the target was poisoned by us, just that it has the poison condition, And we've already seen a few creatures in this video, and we will see more that can just impart the condition on a hit. So with a couple of these and a Venom Priest, that meager 1d6 damage can really stack up quickly. Moving up to CR3, our deadliest new creature is the Madani Inquisitive. With an AC of 14 and 45 hit points, its defensive stats are not particularly impressive, though it does have the spontaneous barrier reaction, which is on a recharge 50% of the time, and that lets it, or an ally that it can see that's hit by an attack roll, add 2 to their AC against the triggering attack, which does help with not just its own survivability, but with its allies as well. The real power of this guy though, comes from the fact that it has a triple multi-attack, which is not particularly common in this range. But that triple multi-attack, on top of being so significant, is also extremely potent. It can make 3 Crooked Staff attacks or replace one with the use of Inquisitive Eye. So here's the thing. Crooked Staff is dealing 6 bludgeoning damage. It's not a ton. But provided the target is medium or smaller, so most player characters, they just immediately fall prone. It now gets to make 2 additional attacks, which will all be made at advantage. Plus it has an additional rider that if the target is already prone, it instead takes an additional 2d6 radiant damage. This is so strong, since again, it just enables itself. But the other thing is that we've also very rarely, if ever, seen substitute riders in the case that someone is already under the effect of the first condition. The bonus damage here really stacks up though. Even assuming no crits but all 3 hit, we're looking at like 30 average damage. But then there's also Inquisitive Eye, which on a failed DC 13 Wisdom saving throw, allows the Inquisitive to mark a target, which both deals damage and gives it advantage on attack rolls for 1 minute and prevents the target from benefiting from the invisible condition. And there's no repeated save, which means this could last for an entire combat. This guy is just so powerful. Runner-up in CR3 is the Civis Scribe, also from Forge of the Artificer. It has a reasonable AC of 15 and 56 hit points, but it also has a very interesting trait, Word of Reason, which allows its allies within a 10-foot emanation of the Scribe to have advantage on saving throws to avoid or end the Charmed or Frightened condition. Offensively, it has a strong multi-attack with Bursting Sigil, averaging 13 radiant damage on a hit. But unquestionably, the strongest element of the Scribe is its Word of Stasis feature, which is listed as a reaction, though I'm fairly confident that it's actually supposed to be a bonus action. It doesn't have the usual trigger and response structure that a reaction normally does, and there's also just no obvious trigger that would enable this. So I'm going to assume that it has to be a bonus action. Anyway, with that, on a failed DC 13 Constitution saving throw, any creature within a 20-foot sphere in a 60-foot range is just straight up incapacitated until the start of the Scribe's next turn, which is so strong. It's like a DIY temporary hypnotic pattern that's also on a recharge a third of the time. This is so potent. Moving up into CR4, the deadliest new creature is a Zentilar Paladin of Bane from Adventures in Faerun. It has an AC of 18 and 58 hit points, which is pretty good, but also an Aura of Dread, which makes it so that creatures in a 10-foot emanation centered on the Zentilar have their speed halved. Offensively though, it's just a monster. Being able to make 3 attacks that are either melee or ranged in any combination, all totaling over 40 average damage, is just impressive. But on top of that, it can also swap one of those attacks for a use of Command or Fear and still make 2 brutal attacks. This thing should not be messed with. Runner-up in CR4 is the Marrow Doublespeaker from Lorwyn First Light. Incidentally, for many of the same reasons that we saw the Zentilar. Defensively, it's not the greatest with just an AC of 14 and 67 hit points, but it does have an impressive array of saving throws. The real power again comes from its triple multi-attack from its Spine Tail, which again averages out to over 40 damage across 3 successful hits. But also like the Zentilar, it can swap out one of its attacks for a use of Command. However, unlike the Zentilar, the Marrow here can use Command at will instead of just once per day, and that is a massive deal. Honorable mention in CR4 goes to the Emerald Claw Commander from Forge of the Artificer for pretty much the exact same reason that we saw the Emerald Claw Knight earlier. A monstrous AC of 20 and a sturdy 78 hit points makes this guy so hard to get through. Plus, its Aura of Authority giving both itself and any allies within 30 feet of it advantage on their attack rolls and saving throws is massive and gives such a huge offensive and defensive buff to the enemy side of an encounter. Offensively, they do just have 2 attacks with multi-attack, but again, that attack becomes buffed once the creature becomes bloodied, which is not to be understated. Looking at CR5, our deadliest new creature is the Kundarak Warden from Eberron Forge of the Artificer. Defensively, it has an AC of 14 and 82 hit points, which is a reasonable balance, but it does also have magic resistance, which helps to bolster it itself against spells. With its multi-attack, it can make 2 Arcane Whip attacks, or it can swap one for a use of Shackling Glyph. Arcane Whip in itself is pretty reasonable, as on a hit it deals 13 force damage and automatically imparts the prone condition. And again, we're seeing that alternate rider here, where if the creature is already prone, then instead it just takes an additional 2d6 force damage. Shackling Glyph though, while it doesn't deal any damage, subjects any target within a 60-foot range to a DC 14 strength saving throw, failing which they are both grappled and restrained, which is a pretty big deal, especially given the range that this can be done at. Moving on to CR6, the deadliest new creature here is the Vervos Maggin from Netherrealm's Fall. Not only does it have a hefty armor class of 21, but it also has a very healthy 110 hit points, 20-foot fly speed, magic resistance, and also a plethora of immunities, not only to poison and psychic damage, but also to a whole host of conditions, making this guy very difficult to get rid of. Offensively, it can make 2 psychic blast attacks, dealing 66 psychic damage on each, but even better than that is its once per day use of Hypnotic Pattern on a DC 14 save, which can allow it to potentially focus fire individual party members or just massively slow down an encounter, allowing its defenses to do even more work. Next up at challenge rating 7, our deadliest new creature is the Cultist of Baal from Adventures in Faerun. Defensively, this thing is an absolute beast with an AC of 16 and 144 hit points. Incredible saves across the board, and not to mention its blood-soaked resolve trait, which gives it advantage on all saves while bloodied. Oh, and it also has an insane +7 initiative bonus, which is just incredible. Offensively, its Cursed Blade can strike 3 times each turn at melee or ranged, and is always hitting at advantage, provided the target is not at full hit points. It can also swap an attack for a use of spellcasting, so maybe Dimension Door to quickly escape, or Mind Spike to just always know where you are. First runner-up in CR7 is the Dreaming Dark Infiltrator from Forge of the Artificer. With an AC of 15, 104 hit points, and strong saves all around, it's already looking quite good. Its multi-attack allows it to make 3 attacks with its Mind Blade hitting at +7, averaging 14 psychic damage on a hit. But on top of that, its Mind Curse bonus action allows it to target one creature that it hit with its Mind Blade, and regardless of range, subjected to a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw. If it fails the save, it takes 4d6 psychic damage and has disadvantage on attack rolls against the Infiltrator, and the Infiltrator then always knows where the creature is. Plus, the curse doesn't just end after a minute or something. There is actually a repeated save, but they only get to make it after they finish a short or long rest, meaning this thing and its buddies are going to know exactly where you are for probably quite a while. Oh, and it also has Synaptic Static on its spell list, so there's that. Second runner-up goes to the Nimble Right Hulk from Adventures in Faerun. With an AC of 18, 104 hit points, and another impressive +7 initiative bonus, this thing is just imposing. Plus, not only does it have pretty good saves, but it also has evasion and magic resistance, enabling those defenses to go even farther, especially when combined with its host of damage and condition immunities. Offensively, it can make 4 attacks with its multi-attack, using either its melee or ranged option in any combination, which can average around 60 damage regardless of which is used, which is just incredible. Oh, and Halting Slam can also set a creature speed to 0, which is pretty damn legit. Honorable mention here goes to the Drow Mage of Lolth from Adventures in Faerun. There isn't a whole lot to say here. It has a strong set of features, but it's really just such an aggressive blaster. With 3 Abyssal Bursts combining for an average 63 poison damage across 3 hits, that's brutal. And it can also cast Summon Demon and use Misty Step as a bonus action. This is just a strong and versatile backliner. Moving on to CR8, the deadliest new creature here is the Faerun Agent from Adventures in Faerun. Now, we already covered the Faerun Scout earlier, and this is more or less the same creature, just stronger. 15 AC, 123 hit points, 40-foot fly speed, magic resistance, solid saves, it's doing everything right. And it's also much stronger now that it's equipped with a triple multi-attack, again combining for around 60 average poison damage, which is significant. Also, its Mind Warp Ray can still instantly charm targets on a hit, plus now it has a bonus action to teleport 30 feet, and as a reaction can cast Counterspell or Shield a total of 3 times per day. Its spell list is also just great and includes Mirror Image and again, Synaptic Static. This is an extremely strong monster that you're not going to want to mess with. And runner-up for CR8 is the Terran Maggin from Netherrealm's Fall. With a massive AC of 21 and 121 hit points, a 20-foot fly speed, and magic resistance, defensively, this thing is just a unit. It's also got immunity to both poison and thunder damage, as well as a ton of other status conditions. Despite only having a double multi-attack, they hit hard, and it can use either its melee Hammer Fist or its ranged Thunderous Boom, which can deal an average of 60 or so damage across 2 successful hits. This is strong. Though it is worth mentioning its spell list here for a second, as technically, it can't actually cast anything on it. As per its languages section on its stat block, it understands Common and 2 other languages, but can't speak. Now, every spell on its list requires verbal components, and while its spellcasting trait does allow it to cast without material components, it doesn't say anything about verbal or without any components, like we just saw with the Faerun agent. Since I mentioned the other error with the Civis Scribe, I figured I'd also point this one out too. Moving on to CR9, our deadliest new creature here is the Cultist of Bane from Adventures in Faerun. With an AC of 16, 142 hit points, plus 6 to its initiative, solid saves, and the ability to regain 10 hit points at the start of each of its turn while bloodied, it has a ton of staying power. With its multi-attack, it can make 3 attacks with either its Gauntlet or Oppressive Burst in any combination, with the Oppressive Burst also disabling reactions until the start of the Cultist's next turn. Oh, and it can also swap one of its attacks with a once per day use of Dominate Person, which is lunacy. On top of that though, its counterattack reaction allows it, when it's hit by an attack roll, to make either a Gauntlet or an Oppressive Burst attack against the triggering creature, which means that even for most ranged characters, unless they are exceptionally far, they're not getting away from this reaction either. At CR11, our deadliest new creature is the Dreaming Dark Mindkiller from Forge of the Artificer. This thing has a massive AC of 19 and 180 hit points, incredible saving throws, and resistance to Psychic and immunity to being charmed and frightened. Offensively, with its multi-attack, it can attack twice using its Nightmare Whispers, which is hitting with a +9 and dealing average 27 psychic damage on a hit, and imparting the Frightened condition with no save. Also, if the creature is already frightened, instead it just takes an additional 3d6 psychic damage. Again, I love this design trend of giving some additional damage if the creature already has the condition imparted. It's just so strong. It also has Primal Fear, which once per day allows it to subject all creatures in a 30-foot radius sphere within 120 feet of it to a DC 17 Wisdom saving throw, failing which they take 10d6 psychic damage and are frightened, and while frightened in this way, they can only take either an action or a bonus action on this turn. Sadly, this doesn't really combo with Nightmare Whispers, as the frightened condition from it ends at the start of the Mindkiller's turn, though it could work with an opportunity attack. Oh, and it also has a once per day bonus action that can allow it to cast Dominate Person, which is just crazy. Runner-up is the Tarakanan Marauder from Forge of the Artificer, mostly for just being insanely bulky, with an AC of 16 and 247 hit points, plus the evasion trait. Its strikes are absolutely insane, averaging over 100 damage across 3 successful hits, but what really makes it stand out is a Tear Through Space bonus action, which allows it to teleport 30 feet and force the creature within 5 feet of itself to make a DC 17 Constitution saving throw, failing which it has the blinded condition until the end of the Marauder's next turn, which can give the Marauder up to 6 attacks made at advantage against it, which is a huge opportunity for critical hits, and then it can just do it to someone else on the next round. Moving on to CR12, our deadliest new creature is the Speaker Devil from Astarian's Book of Hungers. It's got an AC of 17 and 189 hit points, a 30-foot fly speed, ludicrous saves, resistance to cold damage, and immunity to fire and poison damage, as well as the poison condition, and it has magic resistance. So just breaking through this thing's defenses are already going to prove to be quite challenging. Offensively, it has its Thundering Halberd attacks, which are dealing an average of 60 damage across 2 successful hits. But what's extremely punishing are its bonus actions, of which it has 2. Utterance of Pain allows it to subject creatures within a 20-foot emanation centered on itself to a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw, failing which they are stunned until the end of the Devil's next turn. Or Utterance of Unmaking, which subjects creatures to a DC 18 Constitution saving throw in the same radius, failing which they take 4d10 force damage. As a reminder, neither of these are on a recharge, and it can use them in addition to its multi-attack. This is brutal. Moving on at CR14, we have the Faerun Elder from Netheral's Fall. This thing is going to mess you up. AC 17, 218 hit points, plus 8 to initiative. It's also got plus 8 or plus 9 across 4 saving throws, and has magic resistance, plus immunity to being charmed and frightened. Offensively, it can make 3 Mind Lash attacks, but can also swap one attack with a Vicious Stinger, or one attack with spellcasting to cast Command at level 3. Note that it cannot do both swaps on the same turn. Mind Lash on its own is averaging close to 100 psychic damage across 3 successful hits. Vicious Stinger is also averaging 37 and reduces the target's move speed to 0 until the start of the Elder's next turn. And then there's Command at level 3, letting us target 3 creatures, which is amazing. Oh, and it has a bonus action to teleport 30 feet and can cast Shield or Counterspell 3 times per day. Its other incredible ability is Siphon Magic, which allows it to target any magic item that it can see within 10 feet that has charges and drain it so none remain. In doing so, it also gains the ability to cast certain spells 1 extra time. This is on a recharge, but is particularly potent as it's not targeting a creature, but rather the item itself, which means there is no save. Certain characters will obviously feel this more than others, but it's still so cool. Runner-up for CR14 is the Rusted Worm from Adventures in Faerun. This guy has a massive AC of 20 and 231 hit points, plus immunity to both fire and poison damage and a bunch of other conditions. It's also the first creature we're talking about today with legendary resistance, which is always extremely strong. Its bite attack is reasonable on its own, hitting with a plus 12 and dealing an average 29 piercing damage on a hit. It also has a Steam Breath attack on a DC 19 dexterity save, causing creatures that fail in a 60-foot cone to take 7d12 fire damage. Both of these are pretty solid, but seem odd appearing on a list of the deadliest creatures. The thing is that what really ramps this guy up is its Encasing Rust bonus action, which allows it to target one creature within 20 feet and subject it to a DC 19 Constitution saving throw, failing which it takes 4d6 poison damage and also has the poison condition. However, while poisoned in this way, it also has the paralyzed condition. As a reminder, when a creature is paralyzed, any successful attack against it is now an automatic critical hit, and paralyzed creatures also automatically fail dexterity saves. This means that if the worm is able to paralyze the target first, those two bite attacks are coming in at 8d10 plus 7 each. Or if it opts to use its Steam Breath instead, the target just automatically fails the save. This thing is lethal. Moving on to CR15, we have the Adult Spirit Dragon. It has a reasonable AC of 17 and 207 hit points, but it has some pretty exceptional saves with the exception of Wisdom. It also has legendary resistance and legendary actions. Its multi-attack allows it to make 3 rend attacks, which hit with a plus 11 from 10 feet, dealing an average 22 damage each, which isn't terrible, but it's not that impressive either. But it can also opt to swap one of those attacks with the use of Time Warping Breath, or to cast Thunder Wave. Time Warping Breath, just like we saw before, forces any creature that fails their DC 18 Wisdom save to halve their movement speed, lose their reaction, and then must decide between taking an action or a bonus action on their turn, massively impacting action economy. This is especially true now since the range of this is a 60-foot cone, so good luck getting out of the way. It's worth noting as well that the Time Warping Breath is not on a recharge, meaning that it can be used every single turn, which can seriously devastate a party. Also, there's its other breath attack, Ruinous Breath, which deals 14d8 necrotic damage on a failed DC 18 Constitution saving throw, or half as much on a successful one. The Spirit Dragon is a big deal. Moving on at CR16, our deadliest new creature is the Dead 3 Scion. It has an AC of 17 and 221 hit points, but one of its best abilities is its Culling Aura, which subjects creatures in a huge 30-foot emanation centered on the Scion to a DC 20 Constitution saving throw, failing which creatures cannot regain hit points until the start of the Scion's next turn. This can massively hamper a party's ability to stay up during a fight, and can even prevent healing while making death saving throws from bringing you back up. Its attacks also hitting with a plus 12 to hit, with the Mind Rack Bolt in particular also poisoning a target on a hit from up to 120 feet away and dealing 66 damage, is just so potent. So that's it, those are the deadliest creatures from the 6 new books that were released in the last few weeks. The only other monsters of relevance here are at CR18 with the Ancient Deep Dragon and CR22 with the Ancient Spirit Dragon, but these are more or less the same, just slightly more powerful versions of the creatures that we've already seen, so I don't think it's worth discussing them again, but I'll leave their stat blocks up here for a minute anyway. So let me know your thoughts on the monsters, or if you think I've missed some. I always look forward to those conversations. Check out some of my other videos, but otherwise, take care.